following the public criticism of President Donald Trump of the United States that the Ukrainian President, Volodymyr Zelenskyy, is a man who has lost touch with his people and a dictator who refused to conduct election for new leader to take over the affairs of the country. Zelenskyy, while asked if he could resign by a journalist at a press conference organized to mark the third-year anniversary of war in Ukraine, says he would do that if it would bring peace to Ukraine, and he's ready to do that as exchange for Ukraine to be enlisted as a member of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, NATO. Asked on Sunday at a press conference if he was ready to quit if it ensures peace for Ukraine, Zelenskyy said, "If it guarantees peace for Ukraine, if you really need me to resign, I am ready. I can exchange it for NATO." The Ukrainian president previously had said his country's army will need to double in size if NATO denies its membership to the alliance. Earlier this month, U.S. Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth said that Kyiv joining NATO was unrealistic. "If it is absolutely necessary for me to leave my post, I am ready to do so. I can exchange it for NATO membership. If such conditions exist, then immediately, without prolonged discussions. I am focused on Ukraine's security today and do not intend to remain in power for decades. This is probably my dream." Zelenskyy, who spoke in a native language as interpreted in English language by an interpreter, stated during the press conference marking the third anniversary of the start of the full-scale war in Ukraine. Zelenskyy, in a post on his X social media handle on Sunday, also said, "Ukrainians have come a long way. And this year, we must do everything possible and impossible to achieve a real peace. Peace with security guarantees for our state, with guarantees of dignity and respect for all our people, for everyone who has lived, lives and will live in Ukraine. The people of Ukraine deserve respect, just as every nation on earth does. And just as every person does. Those who are fighting, those who have raised truly heroic sons and daughters. I thank every Ukrainian warrior, all the families of our defenders, and everyone who stands with Ukraine. Thank you for keeping Ukraine alive." We had earlier reported that despite the medical condition that he's under, the high flow of oxygen in the hospital over double pneumonia, Pope Francis on Sunday, on the eve of the third-year anniversary of the war in Ukraine launched by President Vladimir Putin-led Russian government, called on everyone in the world to remember victims of the war in Ukraine, describing the war, which started on February 24, 2022, as painful, shameful for all humanity. Previously, we reported that the Ukrainian President, Volodymyr Zelenskyy, has continued his phone conversations with world leaders with a video and written press statement on Saturday, saying that the world leaders must ensure that the Russian President, Vladimir Putin, is not allowed to deceive the world again, insisting that Putin has used Russian army, intelligence services and mercenaries over 30 years to bring death to America, Europe, Africa, Middle East, Syria. This, Zelenskyy stated after he began special defense campaign with phone conversations with world leaders following strained relationship with one of the countries that has majorly assisted Ukraine in its defense against Russia since 2022 when the war began, United States. U.S. President Donald Trump, who threatened to stop military aid to Ukraine, claiming that Ukraine started the war it knows it cannot win, calling President Volodymyr Zelenskyy a modestly successful comedian and a dictator that deceived the immediate past U.S. President Joe Biden to commit over $350 billion of U.S. taxpayers' money on aid. While the North America country will not get any profit in return, with the Ukrainian president accusing Donald Trump of disinformation and saying that Putin-led Russia has intensified attacks and launched massive bomb destructions on Ukraine's cities and villages during the week of Donald Trump's outburst.
Would you be willing to give up the presidency if it meant peace for Ukraine? Thank you.
Так, з останнього. Якщо мир для України, якщо вам дуже потрібно, щоб я залишив свій пост.
If you really need for me to relieve my post, then I'm ready for the sake of the peace in Ukraine. And I can replace that to NATO if there is any, more to say on that. I'm focusing on Ukraine's security. today, not in 20 years, and I'm not going to stay in power for decades. So that is my focus, that is my dream.
Bringing you the news in a more digital way.